everyone, I hope everybody is doing great, and I am Roshni from LearnerHub, the free learning platform. So today I am here with the last and final video, the 8th video of the video series on natural resources class 9 science, and in this video we will discuss about the oxygen cycle and ozone layer. Let's get started. Even before we talk about the oxygen cycle, what is oxygen and in what amount is it present in our atmosphere? So 21% of the Earth's atmosphere is oxygen. So maximum is nitrogen and the next is oxygen. And as we all know that oxygen is one of the most important gas which is needed for living organisms, because oxygen plays the crucial role in respiration. And without respiration, living organisms cannot survive. Now, as far as existence is concerned, oxygen occurs in combined form in Earth's crust as well as in air in the form of carbon dioxide. So, oxygen has the ability to make oxides. That is, it can combine with other elements to form their oxides. For example, it combines with carbon to form carbon dioxide. It combines with hydrogen to form water. It combines with nitrogen to form nitrogen oxides, and so on. So, in the combined form, it exists as oxides. It is an important component of carbohydrates, proteins, lipids and nucleic acids, which are basic building block of all life forms. So let us now talk about the oxygen cycle. Now again, oxygen cycle is that cycle which maintains the levels of oxygen in the atmosphere. So again, we will basically talk about the processes which give oxygen to the atmosphere, and again those processes which take away oxygen from the atmosphere. So let us first talk about the processes where oxygen gets used up from atmosphere. Oxygen is taken up from the atmosphere. So first such process would be combustion. So any burning takes place only in presence of oxygen. So for burning or combustion to take place, you need oxygen. Respiration, which happens in all living organisms, both plants and animals, where oxygen is taken up to oxidize the food, which is generally in the form of glucose, and the food is oxidized to release carbon dioxide, water and a lot of energy. So this is how food gets converted to energy, and this process happens only by intake of oxygen. So this is another important process by which oxygen is taken up from the atmosphere. Besides that, formation of oxides, like formation of nitrogen oxides. Now you would have seen that the atmospheric nitrogen that is not in usable form by plants or animals. So the nitrogen gets converted into ammonia, then nitrites, then nitrates. So all these nitrites, they often form the oxides, and to form oxides they need oxygen. So whenever any other element want to form its oxides, it tries to combine with oxygen. So when it combines with oxygen, it is basically taking up oxygen from the atmosphere. So these are three basic areas where oxygen gets used up from the atmosphere. The primary thing still being respiration. Now how is oxygen given back to the atmosphere? By the process of photosynthesis. Because in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide is taken up from the atmosphere and it combines with water to form food in the form of glucose, and a byproduct is oxygen along with a lot of energy. So oxygen is released in the process of photosynthesis. So oxygen and photosynthesis and respiration, they are like reverse processes. Respiration takes up oxygen from atmosphere and photosynthesis gives back oxygen to the atmosphere. Now if you look at this diagram, you see atmospheric oxygen is used up during respiration. Now in respiration, what happens? In case of respiration, along with oxygen, as a result of respiration, carbon dioxide and water are the products. So if you see here, in respiration, carbon dioxide and water are the products. Now in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water are the reactants. That is, they both combine to form oxygen. So it is as simple as that. Now when you talk about, and the result of photosynthesis is C6H12O6, which is glucose, and this glucose is the reactant for respiration. So that these two processes, photosynthesis and respiration, these two processes themselves explain the entire oxygen cycle. So now that we are talking about oxygen, let's talk about another molecule which is also made up of the oxygen atom, and that is ozone. Now, what is oxygen? So this is oxygen atom. So if I write O, that actually means one oxygen atom. Now, if two oxygen atoms combine, it forms an oxygen molecule. And if three oxygen atoms combine, it forms an ozone molecule. So that's ozone. So ozone is formed by three atoms of oxygen. So a molecule containing three atoms of oxygen, that is O3, is ozone. Now, where do we find this ozone? So ozone is actually formed at higher levels of the atmosphere. So, and how is it formed? Now oxygen molecule is present when ultraviolet rays fall on the atmosphere. It splits the oxygen molecule to form oxygen atoms. That is somewhat like this. So in the atmosphere, oxygen is anyways present. We know that 21% of the atmosphere is oxygen. Now in the higher layers of the atmosphere, ultraviolet radiation is able to reach, because so the atmosphere acts as a blanket for ultraviolet radiation, but the top layers of atmosphere receives ultraviolet radiation to some extent. So in presence of this ultraviolet radiation, the oxygen molecule breaks into two oxygen atoms. Now one of these oxygen atoms again combine with the oxygen molecule to form the ozone molecule. So this is how ozone is formed. So ozone basically absorbs the ultraviolet radiation, because if you look at it, the formation of ozone takes place only in presence of ultraviolet radiation. Right? Now ozone is a deadly poison. But this ozone, that is a poison, only acts as a protection for us. Why? Because of the property of ozone to absorb ultraviolet radiation. Now we often say that atmosphere acts as a blanket because it doesn't allow ultraviolet radiation to enter inside the earth. So what is that component in the atmosphere which doesn't allow ultraviolet radiation to enter? The ozone layer. So these ozone molecules, they form a layer, and this ozone layer kind of absorbs the ultraviolet radiation, and that is why the ultraviolet radiation cannot enter inside the earth. So the ozone layer actually provides protection against the ultraviolet radiation. Now you might ask that from where is this ultraviolet radiation coming? Now the sun emits many different types of radiation, like the visible light, the infrared radiation, ultraviolet radiation, radio waves, microwaves, etc. So out of all these radiations, only visible light is useful to the earth, right? But the ultraviolet radiation have very high energy, and it is very harmful for the living cells. In fact, it can cause various diseases in skin. If the skin is exposed to ultraviolet radiation, it can cause skin cancer, because the DNA and proteins inside the body have a tendency to absorb ultraviolet radiation, which in turn increases the risk of skin cancer. So protection against this ultraviolet radiation is needed, and this protection is provided by ozone, which as such is a deadly poison, but this poison acts as a protection for us. So now when we talk about the ozone layer, so all these ozone molecules, they form a layer, and this layer is termed as ozone layer. So as you look at this, from the sun, the visible light is able to reach the earth, but the ultraviolet radiation, they are not allowed to enter inside the earth, because the ozone layer absorbs them and doesn't allow them to reach any further. So a protective layer around the earth which absorbs the harmful ultraviolet radiation of the sun, that protective layer is termed as ozone layer. Now, the threat arises due to depletion of ozone layer. Now, it has been observed lately that the thickness of the ozone layer is gradually decreasing. So the decrease in the amount of ozone in the atmosphere is termed as depletion of ozone layer. So if there is less ozone in the atmosphere, then the thickness of the ozone layer will gradually decrease. If the thickness will decrease, then what will happen? There will be no one to protect us from ultraviolet radiation. So more and more ultraviolet radiation will enter inside the earth. So this can be a very serious threat. In fact, this is a very serious threat. So now, if you actually look at the thickness of the ozone layer, it has actually reduced a lot. So what are the causes for depletion of ozone layer? Use of chlorofluorocarbons. So what is chlorofluorocarbons? These are often termed as CFC, chlorofluorocarbon. So this is an inert, colorless, odorless gas. So this is inert, that is, it doesn't react with anything. It is colorless, it is odorless. Therefore, because of these properties, it is very difficult to detect the presence of chlorofluorocarbon because it has no color, no smell, it doesn't react with any other thing. So you cannot actually identify if this is present in a particular place or not. It is often used in refrigerators and air conditioners. However, chlorofluorocarbon as such is non-toxic. So as such, this chemical is non-toxic, it doesn't do any harm, but only when it reaches the higher levels of the atmosphere under high energy radiation, this chlorofluorocarbon gets converted into chlorine, and one chlorine molecule. So what happens at high levels of atmosphere? At high levels of atmosphere, the chlorofluorocarbon gets converted into chlorine, and one chlorine molecule has the ability to destroy 1,00,000 ozone molecules. So just look at this number. One molecule of chlorine can destroy 1,00,000 ozone molecules. This is such a huge number. So basically this chlorine acts as a catalyst. So what happens? So even though chlorofluorocarbon is non-toxic, it doesn't do any harm to us, but when it reaches the higher levels of atmosphere, it produces chlorine, and chlorine destroys 1,00,000 molecules of ozone molecules. So we have to anyway we have to find out some way by which we can reduce the use of chlorofluorocarbons. Otherwise, what will happen? The ozone layer will gradually keep on decreasing, and finally a time will arrive when there will be no ozone layer, when there will be no protection against the ultraviolet radiation of the sun. So if you actually look at the depletion of the ozone layer, you would see that the thickness of the ozone layer is generally measured in Dobson units, which is also written as DU, that is called Dobson unit, just a parameter to measure the thickness of ozone layer. So it has been seen that the decrease in the thickness of the ozone layer has happened really fast. So you see the ozone concentration has been shown in this scale, and this actually shows that as time passes by, every 20 years, the ozone concentration is gradually decreasing. So towards the blue color means the concentration is gradually decreasing. So you see by 2040 or by 2060 it is completely blue. So the ozone concentration has dropped significantly. Whereas in 1974 it was almost towards the red side. So the concentration was so much, and gradually with time the concentration is gradually decreasing so much. It is continuously decreasing. So by 2060 you can imagine what would be the situation. So it will be like there will almost be like no ozone layer, so we are all open to ultraviolet radiation. So the number of deaths would also increase, the number of diseases would also increase. So this is a very serious threat, and we should definitely take a step to stop the usage of chlorofluorocarbons. Now, when we talk about the consequences of ozone layer depletion, skin cancer is the first thing, because as I said, the proteins and the DNA present inside our body, they have a tendency to absorb the ultraviolet radiation, and as a result, skin cancer can take place. Leukemia and breast cancer, because again, all the cancer causing in fact, ultraviolet radiation has all the properties that can give rise to cancer. So when your body gets exposed to more and more ultraviolet radiation, so the chances of skin cancer or breast cancer, they tend to increase. Damage the immune system. So that is, what is immune system? Immune system is the strength of our body to fight against diseases. So ultraviolet radiation destroys that immune system, so that even if you fall ill due to small infections, your body will become severely affected. So your body will not be able to fight even against small infections. Damage plants, because in plants ultraviolet radiation will adversely impact photosynthesis. So ultraviolet radiation also causes more water to evaporate through the stomata. Therefore, there is a decrease in moisture content in the soil. In fact, a lot of aquatic plants would also directly die. So what are the measures to control ozone layer depletion? So first thing is limited production of chlorofluorocarbons. So let us try and see if there could be some substitute that can be used instead of chlorofluorocarbons. If not, at least we should try to minimize the production of chlorofluorocarbons. Minimize use of pesticides, because pesticides, as I have mentioned before also, that pesticides has more negative impact than its positive impact, especially when you excessively use pesticides. So try to use pesticides as minimal as possible, because pesticides are also harmful to the ozone layer. Usage of eco-friendly household cleaning products. Many cleaning agents, like we often use different cleaning agents like phenyl, Harpic, etc. for cleaning our household. Now, many of these cleaning agents contain lot of harmful poisonous chemicals which interfere with the ozone layer. So it should be ensured that only those kind of products should be made available in the market which are environment friendly, and when I say environment friendly, that means it should contain only those kind of chemicals which do not interfere with the ozone layer. Because looking at the way the depletion of ozone layer is taking place, I am sure that all of you would agree with me that we just cannot take a chance anymore to let this ozone layer depletion continue. So therefore we definitely need to take some steps so that we can control the ozone layer depletion.
So children, I hope you found these videos useful, and do make sure that you watch all the 8 videos of the video series on Natural Resources Class 9 Science, and I am sure these videos are definitely going to help you. If you have a feedback to share, do let me know in the comment section. I would be more than happy to hear from you. I will meet you all very soon with a new video with a new topic. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.